But let's just take a moment to talk about what happened. You have a man who is sleeping in his car, right? A man who's sleeping in his car and he's drunk. Was he drunk driving? Let's say he is, right?
Let's say he is. How did he get to Wendy's? Of course he was driving drunk. So let's not act like there's any question mark there.
So he's broken some law, a law not worth dying for.
A law not worth dying for. He didn't die because he was driving a car with a blood alcohol level above the legal limit. He died because when he was going to be arrested for a DUI, like the other 1.4 million people a year are that cooperate, that know they did something wrong, that know they broke the law, and go along and they cooperate with police officers like they should, like good citizens. But no, he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he thought he was above the law. He didn't think that he deserved to be arrested for a DUI like the other 1.4 million people. He thought he had special privileges. So what did he do? He punched the officer in the face, he stole the officer's taser, and then proceeded to turn around and try to tase the officer, at which point the officer could have been incapacitated and he could have stole the officer's gun. That's why he was killed.
I think we can all agree on that. The police approach him. And even then, I asked the question, why are armed police dealing with a man who's sleeping in his car?
Why are police armed? Because there's more guns in this country than there are people. It doesn't matter if he was sleeping in his car. If the officers are responding to a call in which there is a possibility that they might have to make an arrest, how are you supposed to arrest someone that might have a gun when you don't have a gun?
He posed no threat to anybody. No one at Wendy's felt afraid. Cars are driving around him. He's not stopping people from ordering food. So why are armed police there in the first place?
Well, let's not try to act like this guy was somehow innocent. Drunk driving kills 30 people a day. Think about this. As you're watching this video, this time tomorrow, 30 more people will have died of drunk driving.
That's the question I think, like, these are all the questions we need to ask. Why? Why? Why are armed police the first people who have to go and respond to somebody who's sleeping in their car who is drunk? Secondly, why do the police not give, I mean, the man says to them, I will walk home. If you're protecting and serving people, what is the true purpose of you not wanting people to drive drunk? It's that you don't want them killing themselves and other people. In this instance, no one had died because of his driving, and he hadn't killed himself because of his driving. And so as a police officer, maybe it's because I live in a utopian world where the police are truly just trying to protect and serve, not trying to write enough tickets, not trying to get enough people arrested, not trying to fill quotas. No, they're trying to protect and serve. In that instance, you would hope a policeman would say, sir, you do not look fit to drive. You said your sister lives around the corner. You said you live, we'll take you home. We didn't find you driving.
Okay, Trevor, now you've just completely gone off the deep end. So now you were suggesting that police officers should be the personal free Uber drivers for all the people that are just driving around drunk. You're advocating that DUIs should no longer be a crime. We're now just going to have police officers just give these drunk drivers rides home. Let me just remind you, 30 people a day die from drunk driving. And you don't think that there should be any penalty for driving drunk when 30 people a day die from drunk driving?
Drunk. We found you asleep in a car, so we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. The country's burning down because of the way black people are dealt with by the police. So let us show you just in a moment that it doesn't always have to end the way.
The country is burning down because of people pushing false narratives like you, that are telling black people that they're oppressed, that there's systemic racism in policing. When if you watch my other videos, I'll link this in the description below. Watch my other video of the 5 biggest lies of Black Lives Matter, where I debunk the notion that there's racial bias in policing.
Way you think it has to end. I'm not saying they had to do that, but it would have been nice. They arrest him. He fights. Now, you know what's messy about this whole thing is we forget you are dealing with a drunk person. You're dealing with somebody. The very fact that you're not allowed to sign a contract when you're drunk. The very fact that you're not allowed to do anything when you're drunk.
Yeah, you're right. You know what else you're not allowed to do when you're drunk? is drive. That's why DUI is a crime. So you're trying to play both sides here. You're trying to say DUI shouldn't be a crime because he should just be driven home. He was just doing something that was just so passive and innocent. He was just sleeping in his car. But at the same time, oh, if you are drunk and you do something violent, if you do attack a police officer, well, you have to give him a write-off because he was drunk. You can't have it both ways. You can't try to act like, oh, if you're drunk and you're innocent, but also if you do something violent and crazy, that's okay too.
Tells us something about drunk people. We know what a drunk person is in society. They're not going to do the logical thing. So as a policeman, if a drunk person doesn't...
Correct. And if they're not going to do the logical thing, like make good judgments as they are driving, because 30 people a day die of drunk driving, then this should be a crime.
Illogical thing. Like, I feel like you should acknowledge the fact that they're drunk. It doesn't mean they deserve to die. They're drunk. We know what drunk people do.
No, he doesn't deserve to die. He deserves to go to jail.
I've been drunk. You've been drunk. Everyone has been drunk. You don't deserve to die for being drunk. And if police cannot respond or cannot handle a drunk person, well, then they shouldn't be responding. If you responding to a person who's drunk means that person can be dead, the whole point of you going there was to make sure that people don't die because of whatever's happened. But if the people are going to end up dead anyway, then what's the point?
Okay. Once again, Trevor is trying to distort the truth, saying that this guy died because he was drunk. And like I said earlier, and everybody knows this who watched the tape, he did not die because he was driving a car with a blood alcohol level above the legal limit. He died because he punched a police officer in the face. It doesn't matter what happened before that. If you punch a police officer in the face and steal his taser, you will die. Pretty much any person with common sense knows this, besides Trevor Noah.
And people say he shouldn't have resisted. Yeah, he's drunk. I'm not excusing his act, but he's drunk. In a situation...
I'm not excusing him, but here's the excuse.
Situation like that, the sober person, in my opinion, the sober person, the onus is upon them to make sure the situation doesn't get out of hand. You're sober. He's drunk. How are two sober men wrestling with a drunk person on the ground? How does it get that far? How does it end with him losing his life? And people always say the same thing. They go, well, you know, if you didn't do that, then you would still be alive. They say this shit all the time, if you didn't do that. But the truth is, the ifs keep on changing. Oh, if you didn't resist arrest. If you didn't resist arrest, you would still be alive. Or if you didn't run away from the cops, you would still be alive. Well, if you didn't have a toy gun and were 12 years old in the middle of a park, then you would have still been alive. Well, you know what? If you weren't wearing a hoodie, you would have still been alive. Well, you know, if you didn't talk back to the cops, you would have still been alive. If you weren't sleeping in your bed as a black woman, you would have still been alive. There's one common thread beyond all the ifs. If you weren't black, maybe you'd still be alive.
And then once again, there's one common thread among all these things, that if you weren't black. So now Trevor, once again, always trying to spread racial hate and division, pushing a false narrative that there's widespread racial bias and systemic racism in policing, which isn't true. And I have linked my video in the description below of the 5 biggest lies of Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to go into all the details in this video, but you can watch that video where I completely debunk the myth that there is racial bias in policing, the myth that people like Trevor Noah try to spread.